Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday, October 29, 2020 session in our series on digital transformation in traditional and new industries in Asia. I'm Richard Dasher. I direct the U.S. Asia Technology Management Center at Stanford. We're very happy to produce this series of public lectures that's also available for Stanford University credit for Stanford students. And we want to thank our member companies, which are the primary sources of support for everything we do at our center, including this series. So today, we're talking about how really digital transformation has enabled a new kind of business, specifically crowdfunding, which in turn has enabled great progress by traditional businesses in Asia. We're very happy to welcome a recent Stanford grad to be our speaker today. Ms. Lu Li is the general manager of global strategy at Indiegogo, which is a global crowdfunding platform. And Lou went to work at Indiegogo very soon after getting her master's in East Asian Studies at Stanford in 2017. She spearheaded the company's expansion into China. She helped launch Indiegogo's China Fast Track program to support China-based startup companies building their global presence through crowdfunding. Through this program, entrepreneurs have raised over $260 million US on Indiegogo. And of course, this turned into a multi-million dollar business unit for Indiegogo. She achieved a quarterly revenue growth of 214%. So, of course, as punishment for doing an absolutely incredible job, she gets promoted. Now, Lou is involved in expanding to other international markets. And this year, she's focusing a lot on Japan and Korea. Lou is now responsible for about 1/4 of all of Indiegogo's total revenues. I'm very delighted to welcome somebody who I feel like I'm welcome you back home. Lou, thanks so much for coming and being with us today. And I think you're going to introduce our other panelists too, right?
That's true, absolutely. Well, thank you first, Professor Dasher here. It was a very, very generous introduction. I'm very glad and truly honored to be here today, along with my dear friend, Mr. Ray Chen here from Midea, who has been a great collaborator with Indiegogo, launching a tremendous campaign early this year, which we'll talk about in a bit. But again, I can't believe it's only been a few years ago since I was actually in the audience as a student. Back then I really enjoyed attending these seminar series exactly because you get exposed to a wide range of topics, but also at the same time because the speakers are experts in their field, you also get to take that deep dive with them to learn about their trade, learn about industry topics that on a much deeper level that you will never get from reading an article or reading a book. So for today, I'm very excited to talk to you about a topic that is very close to heart: crowdfunding through the lens of consumer product market maker who are going global. The topic for today is going global: how crowdfunding and the global transformation of consumer product makers in Asia. I'm going to break down today's presentation into three parts. First of all, talk a little bit more about the market trend that we're seeing. Second, how Chinese consumer products are leveraging crowdfunding to transform their global selling strategy. And third of all, a few case studies to share from our very own campaigners on Indiegogo who have made the successful transition through this process. So I guess I won't overdo this part. My name is Lou. I'm the general manager of global strategy at Indiegogo. My main responsibility, as Professor Dasher said earlier, is to maintain the health and growth of the company on the international market front. Bringing our platform to provide crowdfunding as a tool and a resource to our international entrepreneurs, while at the same time helping them, making sure this community is successful on our platform. Let me dive right in to market trend. So Brand Z publishes a global brand awareness report every year that gauges with the brand perception on a global scale for companies in different countries. It's very well recognized in China and quite chased after as an honor badge for companies. And listing top 50 brands, as you can see, with global awareness in China, quite a lot of them my team has worked with. So quite proud there. Taking a deeper dive, what we're seeing is a steady growth of global awareness of Chinese brands in the past few years. And as you can see, the consumer electronics as a category makes up the largest portion of this pie and have enjoyed quite a steady growth as well. So, what I'm trying to say is, the aspiration of becoming a global brand is not a new idea, right? It's actually highly desirable amongst companies and brands in China, as you can see from the report. And companies in China are actually making tremendous progress on this front for their global conquest, right? So what has been the challenge? When it comes to consumer products, the vast majority of them are either manufacturers or brands that are locally recognized and acclaimed. And for companies who are trying to sell, let's say, to the US, what a company usually needs to go through is this traditional retailer method, which you manufacture the product, you send through a wholesaler, and then it gets distributed by local distributors into retail chains and then to consumers. Quite a long process, right? And then really in here, the key thing to know is that margins are low. The traditional model of going through wholesaler, distributor, retailer, having this middleman means that there's very little margin for the manufacturers or the original brands in China. And we all know, trade war has happened for quite some time now between the US and China. So what happens is that when you have tariffs, all of a sudden taking a cut from this whole process, it leaves manufacturers with even lower margins to survive, right here. And some of them simply wouldn't survive this whole process because of that. And as you can see, electronics is actually one of the most heavily impacted imports from this trade war. So as you know, when a company or when anyone is in crisis mode, you're forced then to think of new and creative ways to survive. Everyone is putting on a survival hat to really re-engage with how they want to approach global selling in this new market, in this new norm where trade wars still exist. And what we've seen so far is this new model called direct-to-consumer model becoming a very popular thing to do. And it's quickly adopted by companies in China, what we call D2C. And there's a lot of advantages that comes with it. First of all, you're building your own brand and you all of a sudden have a brand voice because you're directly talking to your consumers. Second of all, you have data ownership, meaning trade secrets on who your customers are, how they're using the product, how they think of your product. These informations are directly owned by you instead of the retailers, distributors, or wholesalers that's in the middle. Obviously, without the middleman, you can go faster to market because once you produce a product, you can sell it directly to your consumers. And lastly, what's really nice about D2C is that you can directly talk to the people who are using your product. And that's really helpful when you are thinking about investing more in R&D to produce and improve and iterate your products for future iterations. So this whole process of skipping the middleman and going directly to consumer becomes a survival tool and becomes a popular thing for for companies to do in China, partially triggered by the trade war. But lastly, all of these advantages are very helpful, but when it comes down to business, it's all about making money. Because you're skipping the middleman, who charges quite a hefty sum through that process, by going directly to consumers, you're able to improve your product margin. And that is of tremendous value for manufacturers and brand owners in China. I also want to talk about this key word, which is 品牌出海, meaning go global. It's becoming a very trendy thing that brand owners and companies talk about in recent years, especially for the small and medium-sized companies. So the literal translation of 品牌出海 is brand sailing out. So think of you as a explorer getting on a boat and sailing out to reach new markets and reach new consumers, a brand new world. Companies are very encouraged to go abroad, seeking of new consumers out there. Obviously, going abroad is very hard. It comes with its own set of challenges. And through what we've seen so far, the major challenge, there's really three major challenges. One on the product side. So think about it. When you're a world away, you don't really understand the needs of the people in a different country. How will people use your product? What do people actually want? What kind of product you want to produce that will sell in these different markets is very unclear, right? Without the insights of retailers abroad, that's kind of the middleman here, right? Second of all, funding it's a little bit challenging because instead of just being the manufacturers where people put in orders to purchase your products and then that's it, right? If you're going directly to consumer, you actually need to put in dollars ahead of time to do marketing. So that's additional money you'll need to spend to make money. So how do you have the funding to do that? Third of all, distribution is hard because you don't really know where your customers are. And also in the age of e-commerce, you need to have very good online presence to be able to do digital marketing and online sales. And then for a lot of these traditional companies or companies from other countries entering the U.S. market without a presence on Facebook, without 50,000 followers on Twitter, it's going to be hard to take off. So product, funding, and distribution are the main challenges. And what's interesting is that a lot of companies have recognized that crowdfunding is actually a very good solution to address the issues of product, funding, and distribution. For example, for product, what crowdfunding is you're directly going to potential customers and they will give you direct feedback on what they think of the product before you actually make them. And through the crowdfunding experience, you're able to figure out actually by the end of it where your product is selling. You can see, my product is actually selling quite a lot in the US, but not so much in Canada, or surprisingly a lot in South America, right? So you get a lot of these product and market validation from going through this crowdfunding experience. Second of all, you do get funding ahead of time before you put out orders for manufacturing. So that increases your cash flow, allowing you to pursue a D2C method when it comes to global selling. Lastly, distribution. When you think about crowdfunding, really at the end of the day, it is a way to debut your brand and your product to a wider audience. So going through the crowdfunding experience, naturally you will need to create very good visual assets, meaning photo, product photography, videos, review videos of all sorts onto your page. When you're raising a lot of money, journalists will actually come to you and then talk about your brand, talk about your product. So, naturally creating that buzz and PR for your brand and for your product. And through this process, creating that brand awareness, finding your first customers, building that community from ground zero, building your fan base. So helping then again with the distribution of your product. So that's really where Indiegogo comes in, right? What is Indiegogo? We are one of the world's largest crowdfunding platforms, and we work with startups and existing brands to launch new products and brands in international markets. So far, the platform has helped raised over $2 billion for entrepreneurs around the world, and we're in almost all the countries for backers supporting campaigns. So you may be curious, how does a crowdfunding experience look like? What does a page look like for folks out there who may not be quite familiar with crowdfunding? So I've taken a few screenshots of what a typical crowdfunding page looks like. So first and foremost, if you look at the left side, what really stands out is the fundraising bar. And that's a major differentiator between crowdfunding and, let's say, selling experience on Amazon. Our campaigners come to the site with a fundraising goal. And what you want to do is to make sure that your campaign hit your goal. And sometimes you can triple and even 10x it, so that people can see that you're well funded to be able to pursue your next step of fulfilling your perks. On the left side, you have usually you'll have a crowdfunding video as a pitch about your product, your company, and your brand. It's a really good way to show personality of your brand and your product beyond just typical metrics on what is the volume and what is the specs of things. On the right side, this is a screenshot, a part of the campaign page that a campaigner may choose to put on their page. So really, it's about connecting with your community, showing off to your community what is your expertise and why you're able to make the product that you want to make. Moving forward, who our backers are, borrowing the technology adoption curve, here for Indiegogo backers, we are really talking about a group of people who are very interested and very excited about new things. They are the chasers of creativity and innovation. For the early adopters, price is not really an issue. They're really in it to get a product before everyone else and show off to their friends and families. A lot of our backers are also the early majority of consumers. Price is somewhat important at this point, but again, they're really looking for things that are different, things that they cannot find anywhere else in the market, and that's why they're willing to put their money up front to support a campaign on our platform. Our backers are from all over the world, but the majority of them are mostly from North America, European countries. And for our entrepreneurs in the Asian markets, that's particularly attractive because these are the customers that they are looking for, that they're looking forward to reach. Who are our campaigners, our entrepreneurs on the platform? Typically you would think for crowdfunding campaigns, you're mostly dealing with startups, right? With limited funding, and then that's why they need to fundraise. But surprisingly so, as we enter to new segments of the markets in China and other regions in Asia, we're seeing a lot of locally recognized brands using crowdfunding to really kick off their global conquest of gaining global recognition. We're also working with a lot of OEMs. So these are original equipment manufacturers who are really using crowdfunding to build their brand and then reach their consumers, transitioning from being just a manufacturer to a direct-to-consumer seller. And obviously, we have globally recognized brands on the platform as well, who are really engaging with their community, looking for early adopters to test their new products, to build their PR for product global launches. And our entrepreneurs on the platform are really looking for fundraising, looking for that fundraising experience. They're looking for consumer insights, market validation. They're building their brand awareness, and they look forward to entering the global market. And they like to work with us because it works out really well with especially consumer hardware products, because our platform is very focused on supporting consumer hardware entrepreneurs in engaging with our backers who are particularly interested in hardware products. We're globally minded. We have bilingual staffs in multiple time zones supporting our campaigners from all over the world. We also have very hands-on guidance working alongside with our campaigners. So really transitioning from just being the platform to being the partner in this process, supporting our creators through crowdfunding, which can be challenging at times. And obviously, doing D2C, direct to consumer, is hard already. So imagine you do that if the language that you're speaking and the culture that you live in is quite different from the audience that you're trying to reach. So the additional challenges that we have seen for companies in China or Asia in general are trying to do cross-border marketing are these three things. First of all, language and cultural barriers. This is kind of a given, right? Grammatical errors or design faux pas. Sometimes it's quite easy to tell where the campaigner is from based on kind of the aesthetics that they use for their campaign page design. And that may not be well received by, let's say, a US or European audience that they're trying to target. And second of all, often a lack of understanding of who their customers are abroad and what they really want. And third of all, marketing tools and how to do marketing in general is quite the new concept and a very difficult thing for campaigners to understand and utilize. Think about it, the social media platforms that we are all familiar with, that we all take for granted, it may not actually be the platform of choice for campaigners from other countries. And particularly for China, right? A lot of these platforms are actually blocked in the country. So our campaigners are not really used to or did not grow up using Facebook or Twitter and Instagram. And then now thinking about asking them to use these platforms to do marketing. It's a whole different level of challenge. Luckily, here at Indiegogo, we really try to help our campaigners. So in the past few years, we have really built out a robust program called the Fast Track program to help our campaigners in China to address these challenges that I just mentioned. With a large network of service providers, bilingual staff on the team here in the US and in China, offering that international marketing expertise to our campaigners. And just a few stats over here, we have helped many campaigns, 260 million funds raised through the program, helping them acquiring over 1 million global customers. So very exciting. So through the few years of nurturing our campaigners to be successful on our platform in China, want to spend a little bit more time talking about a few success stories. And I think this will give every one of us here more of a concrete understanding of why crowdfunding can be so helpful in a campaigner's conquest of going abroad. So let's start with Padme. So Padme is a very interesting company. So they have been a supplier of earbuds for some of the most well-known companies and brands that we know here in the US. They're one of those OEM, so original equipment manufacturers that are supporting these brands. So, through the decades of experience they have manufacturing and actually designing DSC, they were very good with the creation of these products. However, what they didn't have back then, a few years ago, is that globally recognized brands or direct access to consumers. So for the past few years, Padme has worked closely with Indiegogo to launch several of their new products directly with us instead of going, white labeling to be rebranded by a more recognized brand. Started quite successfully, but in comparison to the later campaigns that they have, quite small. They've launched campaigns with us one by one, and with every time doing a campaign, they become more successful. And the reason for that is what's nice about having a community is you can always build upon it. So with a successful campaign for the first time, they develop and continue to nurture a community of audio lovers who are really looking for really high quality earbuds, but at a very affordable price, and just has very amazing sound quality. And what's also interesting, I would love to share today, is that throughout this process, it's not just about that brand recognition that they do have now, but also about understanding the market. So for example, when they created the second campaign, Palm the Squirrel, what they received as comments and user feedback from their backers is that they really like the product, but they think the base of the earbuds is not as good as they want it to be. And through some additional research and surveying of our backers, they realized that in an American market, backers tend to listen to more of rock music and pop. So the requirement for bass is actually significantly higher than what is the typical music taste, let's say in China. So for their third campaign, they were actually able to add additional resources for the development of bass, and then added better bass system to their new product. And then voila, it was a $6 million crowdfunding success. So really, through this process of doing crowdfunding, they're able to successfully transition from a manufacturer to a global brand, and during this process, able to understand their audience better and then make their products better every single round along the way. And the second brand I want to talk about is actually Segway. So if you think of Segway, what do you usually think of? This is what I think of, right? These quite clunky wheels that you see in touristy places that tourists ride along in packs, kind of nerdy, kind of awkward looking, major jam of traffic, right? Not so favorable, let's say, kind of old school. And what's interesting is that Segway was acquired by a company in China called Ninebot quite a few years ago. And once the company was integrated, a mission for the company, the new established Segway Ninebot company, is really to change the perception of their brand being old school and touristy, being that like touristy trap, commuting tool, to something really innovative. And you want to play with the cool kids, right? And where do you find the cool kids? You find them on platforms like Indiegogo, because this is really where people come to find and seek out innovations. They want to have that positive, innovative brand recognition and association. So for the past 2 years, we have worked very closely with Segway Ninebot and launched a series of campaigns, from a little robot that can, kind of walk with you and run with you as your sidekick, can answer to your questions, to really practical products like a scooter, right? All the way to really fun, but maybe not too practical products like a go-kart. They've all been very successful, and it completely changed the brand image of the company. So as you can see from here on the bottom right side, that's actually Justin Bieber sporting the Drift W1 e-skates. So these are some really fun e-skates that you can stand on and then do cool tricks with. So again, it's a really good way of building your brand, on a global market. And this is a really good example of that. Obviously, I'm saving the best for last, and I cannot wait to introduce Mr. Ray Chan here today to talk to us about how Midea was able to really build their global brand through crowdfunding early this year. And without further ado, let me introduce Mr. Ray Chan, Director of International E-commerce at Midea, onto the stage, our digital stage here, to talk more about the experience of working with Indiegogo to launch this very successful air-conditioned product in the middle of the winter. How successful that was.
Good afternoon. I'm Ray Chen. I'm from China. I'm the director of the overseas e-commerce. Yeah, this is my first time use English to take this speak. Yeah, so maybe it's very poor in English, but I think I have the brain to try it. Okay. Do you know what time is it now in China? It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm so excited. Thanks, Lu, for giving me this trade. Having this presentation to one of the smartest students in the world, it makes me feel so proud. Now, let's begin with a short. Let's begin. About Midea. How many of you heard about the Midea air conditioner before? I think not much of you. However, we actually are the #1 air treatment brand globally, and we manufacture more than 15% of air conditioner products all over the world. So this is Midea. Okay, today I will introduce the crowdfunding case through Indiegogo. Let me share a short video.
Ray, we're not getting any sound on your video. Does the video have sound?
Okay, it's a very amazing product. This is first show. This is our first show. Use Midea brand to share out the product to USA. Nobody knows about us, so this product is suitable for the providing ourselves. It is the world's first U-shaped introvert window air conditioner. Where is it from? We got this concept in 3 years, 3 cities, 15 family, and 16 school people. So all for you. It's user-based thinking. But it's not, you design is not just changing the outlook. It's the technology innovation that is defining Windows machine technology. So Windows machines are no longer Windows machine. Why the UAC so special? Because it is the user-based thinking, because it is based on product future, because it is a new positioning. Okay, this is the 6th point. Okay, and then we don't know how to sell it in USA because we never use our brand. This special product we have operate with Indiegogo. This is the we are the first $1 million Chinese brand project in 2020. Okay, next I have 4 content to share. First, value of the operation. You know, the top 10 e-commerce platforms in US is here, this listing. There's no Indiegogo, but why we have this operate with Indiegogo? Lu have talked about this. For me, it's the secure funding, building a loyal backer community. Yeah, we care about this and share our story worldwide with Indiegogo. The step 2, the crowdfunding timeline. The Indiegogo is perfect for launching the most innovative products. So the long story starts on November 14th, 2019, when we start to operate with Indiegogo. We spent 13 days for preheat, 40 days for launching, and 16 days for shipping. It takes a very long time to run this case. What we need to do in the preheat, launch preheat the page, college visitors via email, social media activities, promotion of site activities, KOL, simple delivery, and video sorting, set up Facebook group. In the crowdfunding, what we need to do, launch crowdfunding page and video of site advertising, launch of Indiegogo platform resource, Facebook growth, integration of social media posts, KOL video release, and Midea's official website is online. EDM push, page update, supporters activities, and shipping. Using we have several steps to finish it. Shipping is actually brought for us. It's the first time that we deliver our products directly to our consumer as a manufacturer. It's very hard. The step 3, marketing plan. You know, it's just simple as driving traffic and conversion. So the traffic source from DCS, EDM, official web, advertise, Indiegogo inside, other website, social media, and search. The page traffic accounts for nearly 17 revenue. So it's expenses for the traffic. This is the advertising simple. This is the KOL simple. We take more than 5 KOL to make the video. Step 4, consumers interaction. We made a large growth in the Facebook. It's very well because we have the products, golden users, more than 2,000 people discuss with us. This is the consumers service. They talk with us about what? About shipping is more than 14.3%. About the installation is more than 10%. Smart control is 6%, for example, like that. And here is some consumers service. They talk with us. I think it's the most value for us is we can talk with the American consumer. Here is some virtual. Yeah, you have a look at this. Yeah, we made a lot of the activities to touch the consumer, like the preferred, like the Starbucks, the coupon, and also some giveaway like the iPhone 11. Yeah, we have a lot of like this to connect with the consumer. So thank you for all backers and Indiegogo. But something special for you is not over. This is another product we are launching in the Indiegogo. Do you know what it is? It's a dehumidifier. The dehumidifier. It calls QB. You can inside here, and the smart control. You see the water tank is very big than the normal one, but it can hide in here very small. This is the Midea Cuba dehumidifier. Thank you for listening. And this product will launch next month. In the end, I want to say I I worked in Chinese for e-commerce more than 10 years, but but I'm a new guy, the overseas e-commerce. This is my second year, but my English is still so poor. Thank you for your listening.
Ray,
Thank
thank
you so
you.
much.
Lou, thank you. Lou, do you have more to say, or shall we move into Q&A?
That sounds great. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much again, Ray, here to present to us and share your story of how Midea was able to really, in a matter of year, become a global brand, and then continue to do so with new products launching with us in the coming quarters. So look forward to again working very closely with your team through new product launches.
That's great. And Ray, while you were talking, you were getting all sorts of great compliments about what a great job you were doing in English. One of our participants said he wished he could speak Mandarin a fraction as well as you're doing with English. So
thank you for giving me this chance to connect with the world.
This has been a great session. Both of what you gave was really informative, and we've got lots of questions. I want to start with a few follow-up questions to Ray. Okay, so we're going to kind of work backwards. With regard to how you launched the campaign and what kind of preparation you had to do to launch the campaign, was your primary source of advice Indiegogo, or did you go with an independent marketing kind of consultant firm about how to get the word out?
You translate for me?
Did I freeze? Could you hear me?
Ray, I can also help if that makes it easier. Either way works.
Sure. What? Either way, I'm not sure. Lou, why don't you take it?
All right, sounds good. So, all the campaigners that we work with, we spend a lot of time working with the campaigner step by step, helping them understand what is the cost of doing crowdfunding, what are the necessary resources are needed to take on crowdfunding. And when I mean resources, it doesn't just mean, advertising dollars. It's also about other service providers that you need to make your campaign successful. And in this case, you can be working with a video producer, a photographer, a copywriter, an advertising agency, PR
But
company.
Lou, a lot of companies would not even know that, right?
Yes, absolutely. And which is why, crowdfunding can be such a black box that is hard to crack. But what's nice about working with my team is that, we'll, tell you about what are the options out there. And for each team, it's very different. For smaller companies, you may want to opt out working with a fancy PR company, right? And then maybe do some grassroots outreach to journalists. For a company with a little bit more budget, right? For example, Midea here, you can spend a little bit more money on making a fantastic attention-grabbing pitch video that will generate a lot of traffic to the site. You can be working with an advertising agency that can supplement a lot of the community building work that you're doing to add on to your community. And then for Midea's case, it was a combination of all of the above. Ray's team worked very closely with my team on the day-to-day execution of the campaign, from pre-launch to launch to afterward. Ray's team also have produced their own video, their own campaign page design, and worked with advertising companies in China as well to support lead generation for the campaign.
Lou, about how much time? About
Oh,
how much time did Midea spend in pre-launch? Are we talking a few weeks? Are we talking 2 or 3 months?
Pre-launch can take some time, and typically we see the most success if it's 1 to 2 months. If you're doing pre-launch for way too long, you may actually be losing momentum of the campaign's interest level for people. People may sign up for something, and if you don't launch within half a year, they may actually not remember what they signed up for, right? So the sweet spot is usually 1 to 2 months, and that's exactly what Ray's team did. That's why they're
Oh,
successful.
Lou, with regard to the 3 case studies that you had, right?
Yes.
Did they all do very similar kind of approaches to this pre-launch marketing, or did you see real differences between the 3 of them?
I would say there's definitely a winning formula when it comes to crowdfunding. That's why it is so important for entrepreneurs to learn ways to do things so you don't make the same mistakes of others who have done it in the past. And typically, what we see is you got to do pre-launch. What I mean pre-launch here is working with your community to build it up. You want to establish a landing page that briefly talks about your products and ask for people to sign up for a newsletter. So when you're launching your campaign on day 1, you have people flocking in, right, ready to back your campaign on the spot. You really need to have that initial momentum within the first 3 days to 1 week of that time. And typically we see 30% of the total funds raised of a crowdfunding campaign happens during that first few days of your launch.
Okay,
And
that go
and
ahead.
that's really important. You also want to tap into kind of the later momentum that comes with kind of FOMO, right? In the sense that if your campaign is ending soon, you want to really talk about it within your community. Last chance, last week for you to back this campaign. Otherwise, we won't be available, next week. Unlike, let's say, a product listing on Amazon that is just permanently available there, people would think that, oh, I can just come back and get it, another week. For crowdfunding, that finite amount of time actually makes it very attractive for consumers, pushing them to make that backing decision, and higher conversion comes from that. So again, there is a winning formula, and we all always provide best practices to our campaigners on how do you do your pitch video, how do you formulate your campaign page. There's a certain ways that you do it that you can optimize for higher conversion. What are the certain steps that you'll need to
Yeah,
do
okay.
through this process to do marketing right?
Lou, because of a question that's coming up on the chat, are you doing that with the company as part of the standard kind of campaign package, or do you charge extra for those services?
So it really depends. Usually my team comes in as a consultant. So on a broader level, letting them know what are the typical ways of doing crowdfunding to be successful.
Okay.
There are campaigners that would like to work with my team on a deeper level where the team participate in campaign creation. And then for that part, yes, Indiegogo does charge a higher fee for that.
Okay. Ray, I'd like to ask you, you did marketing for the domestic China market before you went with Indiegogo to expand. What were the biggest differences in trying to market the way you got the word out inside China than you did with Indiegogo in crowdfunding?
Oh, okay. I think the biggest difference is we need to touch the real consumer. But in China, it's very big market. We just need to what we want to talk. We just do it. But in US, we need to touch their heart. Is 算法是机械算法。And like the Amazon, the rate, the product rate, at least the rate is from the machine, the computer machine. In China, maybe the e-commerce we can have the business talk. to the Alibaba or the JD, we can control it maybe, but in US it's all from the consumer, all from the consumer. So we use the best products, this one, to have a try. I think it's successful.
Okay, I've got a follow-up question for you. The China domestic market is still growing, and I'm sure that you could continue to grow business for Midea in China very rapidly. What made you interested or think that it was the right time to come into the US market?
Actually, our product is more than 15 market shares in US, but we just didn't use our brand, the Midea brand. I think why we choose this time to use our brand. For us, it's a try, just for a try. We don't know how big we can do because you know it's the trade war. It's trade war. Yeah, it's not worth it in US. It's hard for us.
But yet you wanted to come to the US at this time anyway. I'm very impressed with that.
Yeah, but not now. And when, right? So we just started.
Okay. I see. You were still a little early. So, kind of moving back to Lou, we had several questions that have to do with when a company is ready to really go into this kind of international business expansion. What do you look for when you're comparing possible campaigners to see a company that's really ready to work with Indiegogo?
That is a very good question. And I think, you know, my team sort of functions like a mini VC in the sense that the funding we support is our time and our expertise. And then there's really a lot of campaigners that will come to us asking for support. We can only support a certain sum. So really what we're looking for in terms of what is the right product, what is the right team to launch on Indiegogo is a few things. First of all, we really like working with campaigners like Ray himself and Midea because they have proven to be very good at producing very high quality products at a mass scale. So, you know, one of the challenges of crowdfunding a lot of times is that if a campaigner is too new to this whole concept of doing hardware, and we all know that hardware is notoriously hard to do. There's just so many uncertain factors that may happen from you doing a sketch on a piece of paper of your prototype all the way to mass production, coordinating for global supply chain logistics, and then ultimately delivering your product to a consumer store, right? What we want to work with, the companies we want to work with are companies that have at least to have a prototype and has shown evidence that they are ready to go into mass production. And then these are the companies that my team like to prioritize working with. Second of all, from a global perspective, we really want to work with companies and company leaders who are adventurous and are not really bound to the idea of how they do certain things a certain way, and then they must do so. Because really, by entering a new market, you're learning a whole new set of rules of how to do marketing, how to present your product, how to do your design. And if you're not open minded for changes, it's going to be very hard for you to adapt your product, your marketing, and your brand to a new market. So I'll say those are the two basic qualities that we look for.
So one of the questions that we got refers to what a big change this is. It used to be that a lot of American hardware product companies would actually do their manufacturing in China. But what you would get is you get an American company manufacturing in China that is using Indiegogo or other channels to get into the US market. You're seeing more growth in this kind of direct from Chinese manufacturers into the US market.
Yes, we are actually, and we prefer actually to work with uh, companies who are directly producing the products, because then again, there is a higher level of trust and capability there for them to deliver their product, and that's at the end of the day what Indigo is looking for. On average, we're seeing campaigners fulfilling at a higher rate of their perks if they are coming from China.
But again, if somebody's been focusing on OEM manufacturing, marketing is probably not one of their
That's true.
really well developed skills.
That's true. And that's why, my team is here to fill that gap. We have
Okay.
built a wide network of service providers as well to address directly, that pain point of how to do marketing and how to, again, transition from a manufacturer to a brand owner that knows how to do global marketing.
So do you have trouble? I mean, you mentioned that you want people who are willing to try new things. Do you have trouble with people who are not willing to open up and try a different approach in the US?
Yes, there's plenty actually. And what my team does is try to make sure we can let them know how things work here in the U.S. How do marketing work, and then really what's the most persuasive is case studies, showing them how things have been done previously by folks that may be very similar in a position that they are. So once they make that connection, that personal connection to another campaign who have done certain things that are very similar to what they do, then you get a higher willingness to adopt new things. But always, like any kind of conversation, communication is a process of making that connection and making the persuasion.
So we had one very specific question early on in the session today that's really for Lou. Crowdfunding is kind of trying to reach a broad audience usually, but are you seeing much growth in the luxury markets? Because, for instance, in fashion in general, there's been a real like 9% minus growth in the market this year, but luxury items seem to be holding up better. Are you seeing that kind of a trend on crowdfunding, or is crowdfunding appropriate for luxury items?
That's a very good question. I think it really depends on what backers want. So for our platform specifically, people are looking for innovative product as a tagline, right? So if this luxury product of yours is not just, a handbag or a pair of earrings, but rather, let's say we can also say Dyson is a luxury product of its own in the home appliances category. And then yes, in that case, it will be something that will be attractive for people to get. And I remember, earlier this year, there was a mechanical watch that launched on the platform that was quite expensive, and their whole branding behind it is that you want to have a luxurious watch to match with your luxurious car, and then making that association. There was also this article that came out of, I think, Vanity Fair, kind of poke fun of backers on Indiegogo or crowdfunding sites in general, of how during this pandemic, there's actually an increased number of people trying to back things on crowdfunding, looking to back go karts and $3,000 e-bikes. So these are these high price items. If you do your, again, product positioning right, if you can find your right audience, it will work for the audience that is yours.
Okay, I want to move back to Ray for a question. Ray, you're using Indiegogo for direct to consumer business approach outside China. For your domestic China business, are you doing a similar direct to consumer approach, or are you using a more traditional distribution business model?
Okay. In China, we have two big e-commerce platform, Alibaba and JD. The big appliance sold through the e-commerce. More than maybe now is 14%, 14% in e-commerce. In this channel,
Okay,
yeah, it cover this. So we didn't use the official website to sell. It's very small, very small. Yeah, our brand website is to sell is very small. It's not like in US. And we are building up the logistic system for the customer. But
okay,
in the past 7 years, we just use the Alibaba's logistic system, and the JD logistic system is okay.
okay. So those, Alibaba and JD are well known in the US because they are
Okay.
huge e-commerce platforms. But now Indiegogo being crowdfunding is kind of different.
Yeah.
What surprised you when you started to work with Indiegogo? What's different from working with Alibaba or JD?
Okay. Through the Indiegogo, the sales 销量is small for us. It's like a test. It's like the first step to join this market. The channel 选择 the channel choice. The first is Indiegogo, the small test, and then the Amazon. Yeah. Also,
Okay,
some channels others like the QVC. So it's step one, step two, like this. So Indiegogo for us is the 最宝贵的 the best value for us is we can connect with the consumer.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because most of us think about crowdfunding as new products to the market. But in a sense, this is new market for the product.
Yes.
And it's good, to see how crowdfunding fulfills the challenge of getting to a new market as well as the challenge of introducing a new product.
Yeah. We the step one in Indiegogo, and we have the experience for the market. The second step, we saved a lot of money. We saved a lot of money.
Okay, that's always a good thing.
It's true. It's true. And I'd like to chime in here as well that, crowdfunding is really the first step of entering the global market. You don't just stop there. As Ray said, once you have a very successful crowdfunding campaign, you have exciting backers, a fan base, you can then go on Amazon. And then if you search the product on Google, it will be higher ranked. So going through this exercise of crowdfunding, when you graduate out of it, it'll be much easier for a brand or a product to be seen across the internet. And we time and time again we see campaigners finding even greater success after their crowdfunding campaign, because really that's where the big money comes in.
So one of our participants mentioned the kind of cool products that you can buy in Japan, in China, you know, smart things, smart home appliances, that kind of thing, that have been around for a while and really haven't hit the U.S. Um, what do you see, Lou? What do you see as the major challenges for this kind of new style smart home appliances to really reach the U.S. markets?
You know, that's a really good question because, you know, when you think about innovative product, you think about some out of box um, idea that has never been seen before. And a home appliance is just, you know, maybe not sexy enough to be innovative. But the thing is, really, innovation comes from incremental improvements on how products are made, how products are addressing specific needs of their consumers. And you know what we're seeing from Chinese creators is that they're getting really good and more so by the years better at identifying pain points of consumers from these different markets. You know, through crowdfunding and through doing different surveys, and especially especially coming into this year with the global pandemic, more and more people, most of the people are staying in house and people are starting to buy things that they want for their homes. So we're actually seeing an upward trend in backer interest for home appliances because people are starting to make coffees at home instead of going out to Starbucks to buy one. People are, you know, renovating their backyard to make it more green and accessible. They're buying different kinds of things that will improve their home living. It's a really good opportunity. And we're seeing that increased interest coming from Chinese creators as well in the home appliance category to be looking outward to sell their products around.
Okay. We have another question about how crowdfunding works. So Indiegogo gets thousands of campaigns every year. And, you know, I can imagine that the real estate to be on the first screen or two that someone sees when you log on to Indiegogo would be very precious. How do you decide what goes on those screens? Do you encourage the companies to use influencer marketing to get people to buy their products quickly, or how does that work?
That's a really good question. And you're absolutely right. Our homepage is very sought after by our campaigners. Everyone wants to be featured on our homepage carousel and also on our newsletters. And you know what we're really looking at is a few things. First of all, uh, what we call go-go factor. So it's the secret formula that we have at the company that figures out what kind of campaigns are trending on our website, what kind of campaigns are doing very good engagement with their backers, and ultimately, you know, are these backers backing these campaigns? And you know what I always say to campaigners, they always ask us, how do I, you know, increase my Google factor numbers? And there's a few things. Um, Respond to your backer comments, post frequent updates, making sure that you have traffic coming to your site. So there's conversations happening. And that's what we really care. That's really what Go Factor is to identify the popular and engaging campaigns that are fundraising at a higher rate than others. And these campaigns usually will get featured higher in the ranks on our sites.
Okay.
And we also encourage campaigners to approach channel marketing in the sense that you don't want to have just Indiegogo as the only source of your traffic. We have a lot of backers. And whenever we send a newsletter, um, campaigners get a spike in their funds raise on that day. However, if that is the only channel you're relying on, you're missing out on, you know, more than half of the other traffic and funds raise that you can potentially bring to your site. Advertising is always good. Um, KOLs, so influencer marketing, is also helpful. And particularly for influencer marketing, it's not just about the direct conversion of influencer, bring in a potential backer to fund your campaign, but also that sense of overall content creation for community consumption. Once an influencer is, testing out your product, showing it off, telling her followers, his followers how they're using it, it gives people an understanding, a deeper understanding of how they can use that product. And then, that association with your experience with this product can be very persuasive and increases conversion for the campaign. So yes, absolutely, influencer marketing is very important for driving traffic to site, but also for content creation.
So I think that we're getting close to the time for the end of the formal session. I want to comment on what you just said, Lou, because influencer marketing is also something that is not possible in a non-digital world, right? It's data driven, it's online behavior. And so we're really seeing changes in something as traditional as how people buy things as a result of these new kinds of marketing channels, the new kinds of platforms that people have to sell on. Thank you very much for a really wonderful introduction to crowdfunding and how it works. Ray, thank you very much for the word from the ground, from the street, where really things are happening. And yeah, I'm going to go back and look at your humidifier. I think I know some people who can use one. Anyway, I want to thank both of our speakers for this. We'll close the formal session now, but anybody who can stay, I've got a couple more questions that I'd like to ask, and there are also some audience questions still remaining. So thanks once again to everyone for participating.